I'm gonna reboot my internet. The last couple months, I had issues right as the presentation began. So let me reset everything. Be right back, and then we'll get started a couple minutes after 7.
You put it over here, Debbie, this one, and that way you write over there and I could see what's going on. My glasses right there. Where? Right there on the drawing. Those? Yeah.
Hello.
Well, so much for restarting my internet. All right, we'll give everybody a few more minutes to get in and start to trickle in. Um, Stacy, how's the weather in Florida?
Been kind of brutal, but it's shaped up today. We've got a easterly wind and finally got a couple of drops of rain. So we're
Did you
down
get
in
any of the flooding that the Miami area was getting?
no, much farther south,
Hmm.
much farther south. No, we didn't get any of that. We've been hurt. It's 76 right now, but we've been in the upper 90s for a while already, and it's really been sucking the water out of the ponds around here. They
Hmm.
use that for lawn irrigation,
Hmm.
golf course irrigation, and it's heavily tapped. And now this dry, you can really tell that the gators are standing in the dirt instead of swimming in the ponds. How about yourself? You're smoking it up out there, or burning it up, or what's going on now?
Oh yeah, we have a heat wave coming this weekend, and the AC on my truck decided to go out last week.
Oh, for crying out!
$2,700 to get the replace the compressor and condenser. That's
How nice! How nice! Yeah.
yeah,
What's the
yeah.
truck worth?
Hopefully $2,700 more once I put those in. But it's going to be in the 90s this weekend, so I really don't have a choice.
Yeah. They're going to get to it, or do you have to put it away for a while?
I'm taking it in tomorrow. They should have the parts,
Uh,
hopefully get it done,
Good luck with
or I'm
them.
in trouble.
Hope that's all they're going to do to you.
Yeah, yeah. All right, we'll give everybody just a couple more minutes. It's the top of the hour. We like to see people to join in right at the top of the hour and then face a dreaded Zoom update and then takes them a couple more minutes. So give everybody just 2 more minutes and then we'll get started. Yeah, Mitch's comment about the Gators, I immediately thought any reference to Gators anywhere near me, I don't want to be in that state.
They're virtually harmless until they get a hold of you. We've lost a few dogs and some limbs.
Yeah. They probably won't kill you, but they might take a limb. Yeah, that's nice compromise.
Yeah.
It's the fear of sharks and the great white sharks surfing off the coast. It's like, well, they don't want to eat you, but you might lose a limb.
We got plenty of that action down here too. The sharks are in the beaches.
You have gators and sharks. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. It's
Why
like
why do you live in Florida?
carefully. You got to be careful down here. Our governor keeps calling it the free state. I don't know. The freedom of the gators and the sharks, I guess.
Okay. Live streaming. Bear with me, I have a new computer, so set this thing to record to the cloud. I don't know that it is.
I've got no notice. Usually we get a screen notice of some sort.
Yeah, there it goes. Okay.
There you,
Just 3 clicks before it worked. All right. All right. Good evening, everyone. My name is Patrick Potts Forbes. I am the LAFD CERT Central Bureau Coordinator, and I'd like to welcome all of you to our third Wednesday of the month Community Emergency Response Team Continuing Education Training. As always, these trainings are open to everyone, even if you are not CERT trained. And while we are based in the Los Angeles area, we open these trainings up worldwide, and we're happy to see as many people take these trainings as possible. This is being live streamed to YouTube and will be immediately available for rewatch after. And at some point, maybe we'll get around to editing it down and republishing it. But if you do want to share this with other people, feel free to share that YouTube link. One thing we typically don't do in these trainings is give you kind of an expectation about what you're going to get from this training. And I want to preface this because a lot of times we get people who ask for some sort of certification or certificate of participation or completion from these. These continuing education trainings are written by volunteers for extending and keeping up with the training, bringing it to other volunteers such as yourselves. And we're not an authorized body to issue a certification of any kind or sort. So this is not a certification class. In fact, this is not even a basic ICS class. Really, what I want to do with this training is help you understand the basics of the incident command system and how it applies to you as a CERT or community or neighborhood volunteer. A lot of times these trainings are designed for professionals, firefighters, police, Red Cross, whatever agency you're going to deploy with, so you get an idea of what you're walking into. What's interesting about a community emergency response team volunteer is that oftentimes we have dual roles. We have the basic training, which teaches you how to be prepared for yourself, for your family, how to safely help your neighbors after a disaster. And then we have some more advanced trained teams who actually deploy with the fire department or with the police, whatever sponsoring agency. And those more advanced teams should have, in fact, they're probably required to have more advanced knowledge of the incident command system. But for the people who are going to be emergency responders within their own community, people who are going to come outside their home at 3 o'clock in the morning after the earth stops shaking and they want to help their neighbors, that level of incident command system training really doesn't apply. And it's good to know how it builds, but unless you're deep into it and you take a lot of the training and you see it every day.
Yeah, well, last month in May,
Unless you're deep into it, you don't actually see a full implementation of it to the degree that it really factors in knowing those advanced level of training. So we want to give you a different approach to incident command system. We're not going to teach it the same way it's taught in the basic class. We're not going to teach it the same way that it's taught in ICS 100, 200. We're going to really focus on function over form. We want you to understand how you can use it to understand where you belong in the organization chart. And we're going to give you lots of examples of how that incident organization chart builds, starting with the first person there and building as more people arrive. We really want you to have the basic understanding of when you show up at the CERT staging area, you know what you need to know to get started. FEMA defines the FEMA defines the incident command system as a standardized approach to incident management, one that is used or can be used for all kinds of incidents, all kinds of events, by all types of organizations at all levels of the government, all levels of private industry, all levels of pretty much anything. You can use it for ICS for small incidents. You can use it for large and complex incidents. It is really designed to scale from the typical example when you take the training is use it to plan a wedding or use it to plan an event. And those are pre-planned events. Incidents are not pre-planned, they just happen. And the incident command system is really designed to make it so that you know where resources are in relation to yourself and in relation to the entire responding infrastructure. You're going to have multiple jurisdictions and agencies responding to a large incident. Now, where it applies at our level is it's you and your neighbors, of course. So we really don't necessarily need to know where the police and the National Guard land on your ICS chart because you're probably not going to see them. But the reason why we encourage you to take the more advanced training is because if you're part of a larger disaster and your CERT response gets rolled up into something larger, you need to know where you land and who you're reporting to and how that command structure works. It really enables multiple jurisdictions to work together. And that's the beauty of it. And that's why it was designed so that everyone is speaking the same language. Everyone has this common standard that they're trained to and understand. And it really does establish common processes for incident level planning and resource management. It allows integration of resources, facilities, equipment, personnel, all within that common structure. And if you really do want to learn more, we encourage you to take the online training. It's free. It's put on by FEMA. It's online. National Incident Command System. National Incident Management System. ICS is a part of that. The most common required trainings, the basics are ICS 100, 200, 700, and 800. And that's the general order you take them in. There are additional classes above and beyond that that are taught in person. Those are ICS 300 and ICS 400. And we'll revisit this at the end of the training, but it really does give you, starts from the beginning and starts to build as you go through the different levels of training. For those of you who have not taken the Community Emergency Response Team training, we are here based in Los Angeles, of course. So we encourage you to take the training if you can, if you have the time to. It is completely free, taught by the fire department. And if you go to cert-la.com/Eventbrite, these are in-person classes. It's in person because there are exercises and hands-on training that really help cement some of the skills that you learn. LACD teaches a lot of classes. They teach them every odd month and they run for 7 weeks, one night a week for 2.5 hours. There are also daytime classes and they start every odd month. This of course is June. So next month, July, is a new round of classes. So if you go to cert-la.com/Eventbrite, you'll be able to see the list of upcoming classes and trainings around the city of Los Angeles. LA County also offers training. They tend to do it more condensed. They do offer an 8-week class in a similar setup. They also offer longer sessions, or they do sometimes Friday, Saturday, Sunday, or Saturday, Sunday classes. Saturday, Sunday, Saturday. You can just search for LA County Fire CERT training, and you should be able to find this link and sign up there. Either of the groups will train you to the same standard. Now, as we kind of imagine what incident command system is, we really think of the org chart. We think of the organization chart as what incident command system is, and it's more than that. It is a lot more than that. But this is typically what we see when we do a search. In fact, I did a search for incident command system and found this chart. You have the incident commander at the top, public information officer, liaison officer, safety officer, that's the command team. Then you have the section chiefs, operations, planning, logistics, finance, accounting, or admin. You have divisions, groups, branches. You have strike teams, task force, single resources. You have the planning section with different units, resources, demob, situation, documentation. You have branches under logistics. That is going to go beyond the scope of this training. This is not what we want you to think about when you think of incident command system, at least not at this level. If you are a professional responder, you do need to take the more advanced trainings because they will go into what all these different roles are here. Incident command system can be as big, as massive as it needs to be, or as small as it needs to be, depending on the incident or event. And when we talk about volunteer responders, we're only a fraction of this org chart here. And so it doesn't make sense to really focus on the big items and the big picture when we want to focus on what we need to know when we show up at the CERT staging area. This slide comes from a download of fillable CERT forms. And it is a little bit more appropriate to what we do. However, this is an older form, and the newer training material actually removes the incident commander as terminology used in CERT, for the simple fact that we would probably never be the incident commander at an incident. So it doesn't make sense to talk about it. However, I find it difficult to not talk about the incident commander when you're talking about incident command system. So we'll bounce that term around quite a bit. I don't like how the new curriculum has everything as a CERT team leader. You have a CERT team leader at the top, you have a CERT team leader in the middle, you have CERT team leaders at the bottom. Everything's a CERT team leader. And I understand what they're going for there. I think the terminology needs to be tweaked a little bit. We're not teaching you to the curriculum. This is not a curriculum class. This is not a CERT basic training class. So we're going to teach you how to build your organization chart based on your needs. However, I want to warn you ahead of time, I will be using the term incident commander just because everybody knows what that means, even though we don't use it based on the new curriculum. And we'll revisit this chart again. I want to tell you, this is not where you start. You don't start with this chart. This may be where your chart ends, maybe not, but it is an example of a possible chart that you may have. I really want to emphasize the fact that it is not what you should be aiming to do when you build your org chart. For our perspective, the incident command system is really, for beginner, the most important part is it's standardized but flexible. We use standardized language, we use common terminology. when we're talking about the operations section chief, that means something in ICS. And it should mean, if we're going to say operations section chief, it should mean operations section chief to everyone who understands ICS. The most important thing, and this is where I think we misunderstand ICS the most, is that it expands and contracts as the incident grows and shrinks. You don't start with a big org chart. You start with a tiny org chart, and it grows as your resources come in and as the incident becomes more complex, and then shrinks back down as the incident starts to end. Same thing with an event. Though an event, you're probably going to start with a larger org chart because you're going to have a lot of resources already pre-planned out. We're going to focus on the incident stuff here because earthquake, 3 o'clock, we're the first person on scene. What do we do? And I want to emphasize, going back, that it is not a bunch of boxes that need to be filled. And that's where I think we get it wrong. We see the org chart in the forums. We see an example org chart online, and we think, oh, these are all the boxes I need to fill with people. So I need these boxes. And if no one fills it, then no one's doing that job. And that is not the intent of ICS. That is an example of how your org chart could look. Also, I mentioned earlier that it is more than just the org chart. So we're going to go into that a little bit about what ICS means and really how you're going to be using it to understand your incident, and more importantly, understand the resources that you have at the incident. What it is, I like to think of it as a resource availability guide, or what resources are here at the incident. And this goes back to not starting with a big chart. And I'll show you how we grow the incident and the org chart from just the first person there. We don't start with a big chart, we grow them. Just as importantly, it shows who those resources report to. And when I say resources, typically we're talking about people, but they could be teams, they could be a variety of different things. But generally speaking, we're talking about people when we're talking about resources. The org chart really starts with one box. It starts with the first person there, the incident commander, the CERT team leader, whoever is the first person on scene. And that grows as the incident grows. It grows as more resources show up, more people show up. And really what you want the incident command system to be is whatever you need it to be. It is up to you to design your org chart so that it means the most to you and it is the most usable to you. It shouldn't be that you're trying to fulfill someone else's org chart, fulfill someone else's example. This should be your org chart and the most meaningful to you as the incident commander. There are two things to keep in mind. Keep it simple. The KISS methodology, keep it simple, stupid. Because if you make it too complex, it becomes very problematic very fast, in that it becomes too confusing, and oftentimes you're trying to build to the org chart instead of making the org chart fit your resources and incident. And as my South Bureau counterpart likes to say, don't overthink it. Don't overthink it. Your org chart doesn't need to exist until it needs to exist. So if the first thing you think of when you get to the incident, you walk outside, is I need to build the org chart, you're already overthinking it. So really what the incident command system org chart looks like is you're the first person on scene, you're the first box. Kind of simple. But again, you shouldn't even be thinking about the org chart at this point. But this is where it starts. Everything starts from one box and builds from there. Second person on scene, or So we say that the first person on scene is the incident commander until relieved or delegated. Second person on scene, therefore, reports to the incident commander. So it's a direct one-to-one relationship. Second person on scene, unless they take over the incident, become the incident commander, they report to the incident commander or the first person on scene. The third person on scene does not report to the second person on scene. They also report to the first person on scene. They report to the incident commander as well. And that means that the incident commander has now two people reporting to them. Again, if you're thinking about your org chart at this point, you're already overthinking it. But this is how this builds. As resources show up, more boxes can be put and put people into them. Fourth person on scene, again, reports to the first person on scene, the incident commander. Now, say, for example, that fourth person on scene is a much more experienced person, and the first person on scene delegates control to them. Say, you've done this, you're experienced, you're going to become the incident commander. I'm going to report to you. And then it could be second, first, and third person all report to the incident commander. Or what often happens is in professional settings, the first person on scene, when they say it's a fire department, it's a fire engine that is first on scene, and there's a captain on that fire engine, and an ambulance, a rescue ambulance shows up, and a truck shows up to support. The ambulance and the truck report to the incident commander, that engine, that captain on the engine. Then the battalion chief shows up. Now the battalion chief takes over as incident commander, and sometimes what will happen is that captain who has been running the incident steps into the operational chief, section chief role. And everyone who was reporting to that fire captain, that engine captain, continues to report to him or her, but that captain now reports directly to the incident commander. And so that's where you'll see sometimes someone more experienced will come in, and then it's not, okay, I'm going home now. It's, okay, I'm going to step into a different role, and our organization chart. This is where it starts to really matter, because you want to know who's reporting to who and what resources you have on here. So if we go back to the second, where you have three people reporting to one person, it's not that big a deal at this point. But when you start really formulating that chain of command and who's responding, who's reporting to who, this is where the org chart starts to build. Again, we're not looking like this. We're not looking like this yet. The org chart is still pretty simple, like this. And again, we want to keep it simple. Don't overthink it. Don't use an org chart that is overbuilt and you're trying to shoehorn people into it just because there's empty boxes. Now, I want to start talking about some key concepts here. Chain of command. I mentioned that a few times already. And I always get these confused. Chain of command, unit of command, they're very similar in how they sound. And quite frankly, they're really similar in what they mean, but they're key concepts in the incident command system. So by definition from FEMA, chain of command is the orderly line of authority within the ranks of the incident management organization. So who reports to who reports to who. Unity of command talks about personnel report to one and only one ICS supervisor who gives them their work assignments. In other words, you have one boss, and your one boss is telling you what to do. There might be an incident commander there well above your boss, but that incident commander is going to tell their subordinate, who's going to tell their subordinate, who's going to tell your boss what to do. And your boss is going to tell you what to do. And this really is important, because when you have conflicting orders, you're told do this by one person and someone else tells you, no, do this. You always default to, who do I report to? who is directly responsible for me? I'm going to take my orders from them, even if someone with higher authority, higher up in the chain of command, tells me otherwise. That's pretty brave. If you look at the military and you have a sergeant or a specialist gets an order from a second lieutenant, and then the general walks by and tells that specialist, okay, I need you to do this. Probably going to do what the general told me to do, even if it contradicts what the second lieutenant does. But should be. General, sir, I've been given orders by my commanding officer. This is Lieutenant so-and-so. If you need me to do something else, please talk to my commanding officer and have them assign me. That is the politically correct response. But that's hard. That really is hard because some people don't like insubordination. And if you're talking to someone with an ego and you're telling them, I'm not going to do what you tell me to do because someone else who I directly respond to is telling me otherwise, that may not end well. Shouldn't happen. That's why unity of command exists, but you got to deal with reality. So you report to one person and one person only. They're the ones who give you the direction. They report to someone else. That person reports to someone else up until all the way at the top, the incident commander, who is the primary person in charge of the incident. The third key concept is span of control. And this one is critical as we start to build the org chart. Someone can only directly lead or manage a certain number of people. Let me put that a different way. You can only do so many tasks before you're overwhelmed and can't dedicate enough energy to doing and mental space to keep track of all the tasks that you're doing. Same thing if you're a leader and you have 15 direct reports to you, it is very difficult, if not impossible, to keep track of all of your 15 direct reports and know what they're doing and make sure that they're doing it, and then be able to report to whoever you report to in a meaningful way. So for incident command system, one person can lead 3 to 7 people. 5 is optimal. Once you get to 7, you need to delegate. Probably if you get to 5, you need to start delegating. Maybe depending on how much you're doing, start delegating even earlier than that. But that's the guideline. 3 to 7, 5 is optimal. So what does that mean? Chain of command. Let's go back to our previous example. 4th person on scene is the new incident commander. 1st person on scene is still in charge of the 2nd and 3rd person on scene. So 1st person on scene reports to 4th person. No, I'm keeping the order that they arrived in intentionally. We'll start to talk about the roles as this becomes a little murky. But I want to make it clear that the order is important that people arrive in until it's not. 1st person reports to the 4th person or the incident commander. 2nd and 3rd person report to the 1st person, who then reports to the 4th person. That's chain of command. You start to have a bigger chart here. It becomes very important. 8th and 9th person on scene have been assigned to report to the 2nd person on scene. The 2nd and 3rd person on scene report to the 1st person on scene. The 7th person on scene has been assigned to report to the 5th person on scene, and the 6th person on scene reports, the 1st, 5th, and 6th person on scene report to the 1st person on scene. Why this is important is because you see the chain of command here. I think I've got arrows here. When you're down here at the bottom, the people who report to the 2nd person, even though they're at the same level in the chart, as the third and seventh person. The eighth and ninth person on scene don't necessarily report to the third person, certainly not the seventh person. The arrows here show you who they report to and who they get their orders from. And that's important when you start to have multiple people in leadership roles who are giving direction. And we see this all the time in drills where someone thinks they're in charge, and they are, of maybe medical. And someone from the search team shows up, and the medical leader starts giving orders to the search team members who don't report to the medical leader. That becomes very problematic. And the correct response is, sir, this is the search team leader who I report to. If you need me to do something, please talk to them and they'll tell me what to do. Otherwise, you end up working for the medical team leader, and the search team leader who you used to report to now suddenly doesn't have anyone doing the job that they assigned, and they don't even know that this has happened. Now, let's get away from the numbers here. Let's start talking about roles. And I want to emphasize that it's about the role, not the name. Oftentimes we think, okay, my boss is Bob. I report to Bob. Well, Bob's not there anymore. Well, who do I report to? Well, or if I report to a role, I report to the search team leader. Bob is the search team leader. Well, I find out that Bob has gone home. Now Marilyn is the search team leader. Well, I still report to the search team leader. So that's the importance of the roles. The chart, the organization chart, is really role and job focused. It's not who is in the box, it's what the box represents. And people are assigned a job or role or a duty within the chart. People can be reassigned as necessary, as needed. So the person who was the incident commander now becomes the operations section chief, and the new incident commander takes over. But everyone who was reporting to the old incident commander now reports to them under the operations section chief position. Or, they go home and someone else replaces them. You need to know who you report to, what role, what position you report to, as well as who that person is currently. And when you have a change of command, you also need to let your people know, hey, I'm transitioning to another role. This is the new person stepping into the role who you will now be reporting to. Doesn't matter, again, who is in that role. It also is important to realize that the incident commander, the first person on scene, has all the roles. They're doing all the jobs until they delegate them. And an operations section chief is doing all the roles underneath the operations section chief until they delegate them, and so on and so forth down the chart. So ideally, you want to do one role and one role only. However, you might be in a position where you're serving multiple roles, you're doing multiple jobs, you have multiple duties, and that is perfectly allowable. It is probably going to happen. But as more people show up, more resources show up, that's when you can delegate and take some of the jobs that you've been doing and give them to others to do, so you can do your job. Remember, you can only do so many jobs effectively and efficiently. And if you're trying to do 15 different jobs, you're not going to do great at most of them. So the more you can delegate down and start creating boxes underneath you and assigning people to those roles, the better your organization chart's going to start to look and how well that incident's going to run. A role can also be a leadership position, or it can be a function. And oh, this one's really critical. A role should be filled by the best qualified or best capable person. It's rank agnostic. So if you show up and you are a brand new second lieutenant in the military, and there is a disaster going on, and there is a staff sergeant who has been doing the job for 30 years and has a lot of experience, you should not take over and pull rank saying, I'm a second lieutenant, you are just a lowly NCO, and you report to me now. Ego aside, you should say, you have a lot of experience. I'm new. What do you need me to do? And that applies across the board. Generally speaking, in the fire service, however, a chief has a lot more experience than a captain does. And so, generally speaking, in that case, the chief is going to take over because they are the most experienced, most capable person. But at the volunteer level, if you have people who are a brand new coordinator, a CERT coordinator, but you have someone who has a lot of professional experience doing it and they are just a random rank and file volunteer, that rank and file volunteer may actually be better suited to being in charge than that person who has a rank. I want to go back to the example of the charts. At the end of the day, your chart may look like some of the examples, but probably won't. It's really up to the incident commander to develop that organization chart. Again, there's only 3 people there. You don't need an org chart. You start to have more than that. You start to have positions, people reporting to other people. That's when you start to develop your organization chart. But it's really up to the incident commander of what it's going to look like. It may look like the examples. It may not look like the examples. You shouldn't let the example drive what the chart should look like. You should let the incident and the number of resources you have there determine what your org chart looks like. If you have no need for a finance and admin chief, section chief, they shouldn't exist on the chart. That position should not exist. There's no need for them. But if you have a need for an operations section chief, then they should be on the chart. It's a really bad idea to walk into the situation and go, okay, I need these roles filled based on nothing except I've seen an org chart before, and these roles were always filled. In a perfect world, people will have one role and one role only. Unfortunately, in reality, most people are doing multiple jobs, multiple roles. And we mentioned before that the incident commander is the first person there until they delegate that position to someone else. And that's transfer of command. And that incident commander, if they're the only one there, say it's an EMT who shows up, they happen to be walking by and they see multiple people go down, they're the incident commander. They're doing all the roles until more people show up and they can delegate roles to them and start building that org chart and that response network. I want to emphasize your org chart starts with one person. You, if you're the first person there, and builds from there. If you walk into an incident and there's already multiple people there, find out who you're reporting to. Mention that we were going to go back to this slide, and this is really it can work. It is a fillable form that you can download, but this is potentially several days in when you have a lot of resources that have shown up. You might not need food, supplies, medical facilities, ground support, communications roles filled. You'll probably have a search and rescue leader. You'll probably have a medical leader, but you need to let the incident and the resources you have drive how you build your org chart, not an arbitrary form that you find online. So, first person on scene. So let's say it's you. You're the first person on scene. Congratulations, you're in charge. You're the incident commander. Second person on scene reports to you. Maybe you need a search team. That's going to be the alpha team leader that shows up. Now you got to start building, or maybe you determine that you need a scribe. And so that second person is your scribe. But let's say alpha team leader shows up and then 2 more people show up and you start to build a damage assessment team. You have your alpha team leader, your scribe, and your radio operator. They all report to you, right? Well, now you have a team that's going to go out in the field. And so really that second person who showed up, your alpha team leader, the scribe and radio operator report to them. And the alpha team leader reports to you. A couple more people show up, you decide you need a scribe and a radio operator. They're going to report to you directly, and alpha team leader is going to report to you directly. Another team, Bravo team leader, scribe and radio operator. Bravo team leader reports to you, their scribe and radio operator report to them, and your scribe and your radio communicator still report to you. As this incident develops and more people show up, you shouldn't be thinking so much of who reports to who as what resources do I have? Yeah, you can tell your scribe and radio operator what you want them to do, but their job is to support you. Their job is to support the staging area. Their job is to support the command post. Your job is to give direction to your team leaders in the field. And maybe you're too busy to get on the radio, and we see this all the time. The person who's in charge wants to be on the radio. How many jobs can you do? Well, if you're talking on the radio, you're managing your personnel sheet and you're managing the map and all the incidents are coming in. You're not going to be able to do them all well. Probably mediocre at best. If not, you're going to be really bad at all of them. So hand the radio to someone else, your radio communicator. Let your radio communicator talk to the teams. Now, again, they're going to delegate. Their radio communicator is going to talk to your radio communicator. So while the org chart looks like this, the Alpha and Bravo team leaders report to you, they're actually going through the radio communicators so that you don't have to talk to them directly, unless you need to. Sometimes you need to. Sometimes it has to be leader to leader. But try and delegate your roles. Don't hold on to that radio. It's a really bad habit, and it becomes very problematic because you're focused on that radio and you're not paying attention to the big picture. So kind of place them here. This isn't really looking like the chart that we saw the example of. But in terms of where things are going and who's reporting to who and how you're putting people on the chart, this is much better for function than form. Now you have a third team out there, Echo team. They have a scribe, radio operator. They have 2 hands-on responders. Again, their radio communicators talking to your radio communicator. You have the big picture. You're giving direction through your radio communicator where you want your teams to go and what you want them to do. Now you have a larger incident response team. Echo team has 4 hands-on responders. This chart is starting to get a little ugly. So we want to not fill the boxes, not build all of my people on the chart. I want the chart to be functional. So My responder pairs can condense down. I know Echo Team has a scribe, a radio operator, and 2 responder pairs. Still, as this builds, it's too much. It's too many boxes. So when really what matters is what you have in the field. I have an Alpha team, I have a Bravo team, I have a Charlie team, I have an Echo team, and I have a Foxtrot team. Does it matter if somebody looks at a sheet of paper and doesn't see who is on those teams? You want to know the teams are out there. You want to know what you have in the field. You care about the teams in there. You don't necessarily care about the makeup of the teams. And as the incident builds and you get more resources, you might decide, I need to break this up. Remember, 3 to 7, 5 is optimal. Yeah, you have 5 teams out there, but is that the best use of your mental capacity to directly manage all 5 teams out in the field? Or should you start to break them up? I'm going to assign a search team leader who will be in charge of Alpha, Bravo, and Charlie team. I can still manage Echo and Foxtrot directly because I have the big picture. I know where these teams need to go. We had an extra scribe there just because you're going to start needing more support at staging. As the incident grows and you have a 6 team out there, now's the time to say, okay, I need a response team leader, just like I have a search team leader. And they're going to be in charge of Echo team, Foxtrot team, and Golf team. This is where, if you hadn't already delegated the radio to someone, you're not talking to the teams directly anymore. You're talking to the response team leader who is talking to the teams. And at this point, the incident commander should absolutely not have a radio. Take it away from them if they do. We had a drill where I literally took the radio from the incident commander. About 10 minutes later, I found him with another radio in his hand. It was really, loved that radio. It's a question, is there a reason Delta team isn't used in this example? Yes, the neighborhood team program system that we developed specifies that Alpha, Bravo, Charlie, and Delta are search teams. Thank you for catching that. I did that intentionally. As a standardization of any system, it's important to know what things are. And we like to think incrementally. I have Alpha team, Bravo team, Charlie team, Delta team, Echo team, Foxtrot, Golf, Hotel, all the way down the alphabet. I don't know what they do because they were arbitrarily assigned. So if we always know that Alpha, Bravo, and Charlie and Delta teams are search teams, and any other team Alpha, Echo, Foxtrot, Golf, Hotel are response teams, then when Bravo team calls in, I know that Bravo team is a search team. If Delta team calls in, I know that they're a search team. But if you start doing that incremental thing and you only have 3 search teams and Delta team is your first response team, or worse, you have Alpha and Bravo out there and now your third team is Charlie team and they're a incident response team. Well, Foxtrot calls in. Is Foxtrot a search team or a response team? So the system that we built specifies Alpha, Bravo, Charlie, and Delta are always search teams. If you don't have a 4th search team, there's no Delta team. Echo, Foxtrot, Golf, Hotel, those are always incident response teams. Does that answer your question? Thank you for catching that. That was a good catch. I'm glad you did that. That was exactly what we wanted you to catch. So You can really start to see that this is not a great way to organize as you start building out your org chart. It becomes a lot, and even more if you start really filling out all the boxes. So you can start to condense it down, and then maybe you now need that operations section chief and search team leader, the response team leader, the medical area team leader, the medical treatment area leader all report to the operations section chief. And you also have a logistics person who's getting stuff for you. Operations and logistics report to you, and then you trust that operations is going to tell you what the search teams are doing, what their response teams are doing, what the medical treatment area is doing. Do you need all of the boxes on your chart? That's up to you. It can get very ugly very fast. And if you're using a Sharpie and a piece of paper, you're rewriting your org chart every 10 minutes. Or if you're using a dry erase board, trying to keep track of it and having to wipe it out and rebuild it all, it becomes very ugly very fast. But that's the design. You start small. You start with one box and then you start to build from there. And when you realize, hey, I've got 15 boxes on here, I don't need 10 of these boxes. I can condense them down to 5. You wipe the chart and start over again. Just because if you're the incident commander and there's someone who's taking over for you, you want them to know what's going on. And if it looks like a chessboard on your white dry erase board, it's going to be very hard for someone coming in to really understand what's going on. And you can put them back in there. Maybe you use smaller boxes and you can do it this way. You're your search leader, and now you notice that Bravo and Charlie team were still in the field. Alpha team has been disbanded, but now you have Echo, Foxtrot, Golf, and Hotel as the response teams. And things will change. As the incident goes on, you don't need as many search teams now. You start to disband them, start to build larger response teams, because that's what you need. And you also have 4 tarps, the medical area. And this way, if someone walks up, they know what's going on. You know, okay, there's an operations section chief, there's a logistics section chief. I've got a search team leader, a response team leader, and a medical tarp leader. And I've got these teams in the field. You probably want to know the name of your team leaders. You don't necessarily need to know the name of the leaders of the teams in the field. Under the logistics section, probably have medical supplies, equipment. These are things that your teams are going to need in the field. Is this starting to look like a little bit like the example chart? So remember, we start with one box and then we build. And you may end up with something that looks like the example you've seen, but it happens organically. It really builds to this point with intention. If you don't need a resource unit volunteer check-in person, don't have a box for them until you need them. Then create a box for them. But don't think, okay, I need a ground support person under logistics because this example says ground support. I don't even know what ground support is, but the example had the box for there, so I need to fill that box. For CERT volunteers, what we really want you to think about, what's really important is start with these questions. How many people do I have? If you're the only person there, you don't need an org chart. You are all the roles. You are the incident commander. Congratulations. You have 3 people there. You can pretty much keep track of that in your head. You start to get more than that. You start to have people reporting to other people. Now's the time to start thinking about building that org chart, because when people come in, they need to know who they're reporting to and who is in charge of the entire incident and who can give them orders and direction. And as your incident becomes more complicated and you have more resources, you need to know what your people are capable of doing. You don't want to put someone in a role that they're unsuited for, especially if they're leading other people. If you put someone in because they say they can lead, they've had plenty of experience leading other people, and they don't know how to lead volunteers, you're going to lose people. People will quit. They'll say, I don't need this. I'm a volunteer. I'm giving my time. And I have this guy that I report to who's bossing me around like he's paying me. What I want you to ask is, what do I need my people to do? That's where your org chart's going to come in. If I need an operations section chief and I need a search and rescue team and a response team leader who are going to manage multiple teams, that's where I need to build the boxes on my chart. And how do I prioritize when new people show up, where are they going to go? Do I need more people in the field, or do I need more people at command? Because if you have too many people in the field and you don't have enough support at your command post, at your staging area, at your incident command, it's going to collapse underneath the weight of all the people in the field and become a flaming garbage pile. Too many people calling in, not enough radio operators, no one tracking the incidents because you just don't have enough support. So it's a balancing act. I need to get people in the field, but I also need to make sure that we can handle what comes in when they report back. We are way ahead of time where I thought we were going to be. Okay. If you have not yet taken the community emergency response team, this is great training taught by the fire department. Actual firefighters teach the class completely free, unless you're in Burbank and then they charge. But LA City, LA County, fire does not charge for the classes. You're going to learn what incident command system is the basic level. You're going to learn how to use a fire extinguisher. You're going to learn how to do basic search and rescue. You're going to learn how to look at a building, tell if it's safe to enter. You're going to work on that team organization. That's really important because when it's just you and your immediate neighbors after the earthquake, the people who have the experience that you've been training with from all around the city are not going to be there. So you need to know how to take leadership and help your neighbors help each other. The July classes are starting very soon. So go to cert-la.com/eventbrite, sign up for a class all around the city. And if nothing meets your schedule, they'll probably have a few classes out so you can see maybe September, what September looks like. Maybe there's a class nearby you at that time. If you're in parts of the outer rim of the city, or you're coming from other parts of LA County, LA County also offers the training. If you're outside the LA County region, I don't really know how to help you. Search for it, search your city, search for community emergency response team. If you search for CERT, you might get random things on the internet. If you are interested in learning more about the incident command system, I recommend ICS 100. Just go to training.fema.gov/IS and you'll see the classes there. If you do need the certification for it, you can sign up with and get an ID, and that will be a student ID that will track all of your trainings, and you'll get a certificate so you can show whoever wants to see that you've actually taken the training. Start with ICS 100 first. There are hundreds of independent study classes that you can take if you have the time and energy and effort. And I would love to take some of these, but I have none of that. Like I said, this training is being streamed on our YouTube channel. You can search for LAFD CERT Continuing Education or go to youtube.com/C for channel LAFD CERT coordinators. And if you need to reach out to me, you can email me at patrick@disasterprep.org. That's going to be the easiest way to find me. So, any questions? Philip.
Yeah, hi, appreciate all the, sorry, I have a dog barking in the background. I appreciate all the information. So our neighborhood council sponsored a class, and the class ended on June 12th. And the CERT coordinator was supposed to be there to explain next steps, but couldn't be there. And then we had our neighbor, whoops,
You broke up there, Philip.
okay, sorry, my screen disappeared. So we had our council meeting yesterday, and the CERT coordinator was supposed to come and tell us the next steps, but they didn't come. And so I understood you might be a contact for that.
What part of the city do you live in? Let's start there.
We live in Rampart Village.
Rampart Village. Oh, Vincent, is that your area? Battalion 11? Sometimes what the instructors do is they end the class early and they don't tell us. And so we're expecting, if the last class was last week, I'm sure that your coordinator didn't realize it was being ended early. It should be a couple more weeks of classes.
Actually, it went 1 week beyond what it was originally supposed to go to, because we were having it at a school, and the school was having their graduation on what would have been the last day. So we actually went an extra week, but I guess the CERT coordinator had some kind of a scheduling issue and couldn't make it. And
Mhm.
we asked the fire department person who was conducting the class for the sign-up sheet. They said they could only give it to the CERT coordinator. The CERT coordinator arrived apparently and asked the fire department for the sign-up list, but as far as I know, they didn't get it.
Yeah, since we're volunteers, and it's a city-run class, unfortunately, for privacy reasons, the instructors, per the city attorney, cannot give us the class roster. So we need to go to the last class and actually ask for it. And it's city attorney, red tape, all that kind of stuff. Vincent, is Rampart Village in Battalion 11?
Yeah, it was the last class last weekend. Before the graduation, I was there. Endorsed sign sheet to firefighter Andrew, and
Okay.
I didn't know that the class would be finished within 1 hour, including the graduation. That's why I was asking for my sign-in sheet, and I don't know what really happened.
Okay, well, yeah, that happens a lot, unfortunately. But Philip Armstrong definitely wants to talk to you, so you two connect, please. All right.
Yeah, I apologize, Philip, for not having the other not attending that meeting last night, but I did submit my recommendation and to
I,
the RBNC
yeah,
meeting, and it.
yeah, I
Okay.
understand, but
You two can message each other
great.
privately and get each other's contact information.
Yeah.
Okay, copy
But,
that. Thank you.
but I understood that Vincent was going to connect us with you, and I just wanted to make sure that we didn't lose that thread.
Yeah, so you can chat privately in the chat,
Thank
get
you.
each other's contact info. If we have any other questions regarding incident command system, hopefully this helps you get a basic understanding of it, an understanding of what to look for when you get there. It's a hard topic to talk about, and um, hopefully it's cleared up some of that. Question is, why isn't FEMA system used? I don't understand the question. Why isn't FEMA system used? If you're asking why are we not teaching ICS 100 and the FEMA system, FEMA incident command system is designed to be flexible. that's really what I want to emphasize here. It is what you need it to be. It is as big or as small as you need it to be. Any example of what your org chart can look like is probably not going to apply to you. So when you're asking why isn't the FEMA system used, it is. FEMA designed it to be whatever you need it to be. And as the incident commander really decides what that's going to look like. So if you want it to look like you have the incident commander, an operations section chief, planning section chief, a logistics section chief, a finance admin section chief, sure, you can do that. For CERT, you're probably not going to need that. It's way more. And whenever I see go to a drill and they have 10 people there at the drill and they have all these boxes and they're trying to fill them all, that's what I'm trying to teach you is not the most important thing. It's not about filling the boxes to look like that example. It's what do I have and what do I need? And how do I write it down so that whoever takes over next understands what it is. Any other questions? Oh, there was a Judy asked about using small post-it notes. I've seen that come up before. I really like the idea until the post-it notes fall off the board. And then you can't get them to restick. Yeah, you can put another post-it note up, and rewrite the post-it note, but post-it notes, post-it notes are a tool. If you can make them work, great. If they don't work for you, find another tool. Whiteboard, sheet of paper. Do what you need to do to make it work. And that's the best suggestion I can give. If post-it notes work for you, great. But it's up to you to decide. I can't tell you it's going to work and then you're going to blame me when your post-it notes fall off. I can't tell you that a blank sheet of paper is going to work when you have to keep Xing everything out and starting a new sheet of paper and you run out of paper. Stick the post-it notes on with small magnets to a metal backlight board. Yeah, I mean, that's one way to do it, for sure. Whatever works, if you have the magnets to do it. All right, well, if no one has any other questions, then I will give you back 50 minutes of your night. Thank you so much for attending. And next month, our former Central Bureau Coordinator, Carolyn Burleson, is going to do a presentation. I am blanking on what she's teaching on. Let's see, was I smart enough to write it down? I was not. All right, well, next month will be Carolyn Burleson's presentation. Also, if you are going to be attending the National CERT Conference at the end of July, I and a few other members, volunteers from LA City will be there. I know a few volunteers from the Tri-Cities area will be there. Find me, say hello. I will be presenting on the neighborhood team program system that we built on Friday. So hope to see you there. And thank you for attending. Have a good night, everyone.